Hey, Isla, how are you today, honey?
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I know that you have been really busy, and I'll let you talk about that in just a moment. But welcome to the Business is Unusual podcast, a place to learn about the ways in which people are working to create the new normal. And this is Alicia Fall, founder and vision holder of the Her Many Voices Foundation, although that simply is the tip of the iceberg. So without further ado, I'd love to have Alicia share a little bit about Her Many Voices and the projects that you're working on, and then we'll go from there.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me onto your show today. I know we've been talking about this for a very long time, and for those of you who don't know, I've had the privilege of working with Aisa for what, almost 3 years now?
Yeah, no, it's been awesome.
Yeah. So Her Many Voices, we focus on women, children, and Mother Earth, and we provide practical resources and education for those groups. So we've been doing that for quite some time now. And I'm sorry, I'm being distracted at this moment. There's a photographer who's standing in front of me who's causing me to just all of a sudden forget about what it is I'm saying.
Oh no, are you getting pictures taken while you're on video? That feels a little unfair.
So here's the deal. So part of what's been going on lately is that Her Many Voices has been participating in a lot of the hemp expos and that kind of thing. And so the NOCO, the Northern Colorado Hemp Expo, just happened this week. We had a 3-day event. And one of the folks who has joined to speak and present and who's staying with me is German photojournalist Maren Krinz. And
Maren's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks.
And Maren's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. Yes, she released her new book, H is for Hemp. And I'm one of many folks who interviewed for that book. So as we just started, Maren came around the corner with her camera. So I got a little distracted, guys. Yeah, she's holding her head down now.
I love it.
See, the beauty, yes, go Maren, yes. So the beauty of the work that I've been doing for 13 plus years now, just with Her Many Voices, is that I get to spend time. We started as artists responding to humanitarian need, and we've grown to include activists as well as global community members over the years. And so I get the privilege of spending so much time around artists all over the world. And which I absolutely love. You know, I love meeting people from all over this planet. And then we come together, we find those common grounds, right? So we come together around those. The core value for Her Many Voices is whatever I do for another, I do for myself. And so the flip side of that is whatever I do to another, I also do to myself. So based on that philosophy, you know, we spend time with others on this planet and we find that mutual, that common ground, and we come together and we do good things in this world.
Yeah.
And it's so, I don't know, I can say more now than ever before, but I don't know that that's true. It feels that way right now, that we need to come together more than ever before.
I agree with that. And like I said, like I realized for me, part of what inspired this focus is that feeling of, I do think we're in a time of transition. It's hard to know how much because you really can't, we don't know what history is, right? This is just life. And then later on, we look back and we make up history about it. Like we decide to create a narrative, but that's actually not real. However, there are times when things change, and it does feel like there are some places where our like basic assumptions are being disrupted. And so my way of thinking is that, okay, if that's what's happening, then let's work on and replacing some of these things that are harmful with new innovations, hopefully better. However, at least we could try to go somewhere that is more integrated, more like working with everybody, maybe, I don't know, paying attention to the resources we have and consume and where they come from and whether or not they're harmfully acquired. So I just feel like there's, as much as there is a scary, scary time that we're facing in I think some very legitimate ways, there's also some opportunities for innovation and to allow us to step into new roles. And so that's what I'm excited about. And it's one of the things I just admire about you. As Alicia said, we've worked together for a long time, and Alicia is one of those people who does, like, there's people in the world who talk, and don't get me wrong, she can talk. She's an amazing speaker.
I can run my mouth. I can
I didn't
definitely
mean it
run my
that way,
mouth.
like, but in addition to that, like, and you surround yourself not just with artists but you surround yourself with people who create. And it's one of the reasons that I super enjoy being involved with the work that you do, because I know that everything that is theorized will get a chance to be expressed. And maybe you'll be like, no, it's not, it's not a good fit, or we're forcing something. And but that movement towards creation, not, and the whole scope of it, to me, that feels like the way that we're going to move into and create a world that works for all of us, and that,
Absolutely.
that really invites everybody to be part of the experience and the conversation. And so I feel so honored to be able to work with you, and I honor what you've done, and how you build coalitions, and what you work to create, because I feel like that's the only way we're going to make the difference that we really want to make in the world. You are a musician, so I'll ask you this. I have these little icebreaker questions, right? And
Okay.
this is so what's the last musician you got lost in?
Oh, you know what? I play over and over again Melody Gardot, so I can say her.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
There's just something sultry and passionate, and just she's a smoky artist, and it really does speak to the very core of me. It doesn't matter what she's singing about.
Gotcha. Like that old kind of noir feel to it, or
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you. We'll have to, one of the things I do when I ask the silly questions is I'll put links in the show notes so people can go check them out if they want to. And I always listen to them. It's fun.
You know what? I have her all over the place, and she is definitely my Pandora link. So, if you put her in there, if you put Melody Gardot in there, you're going to get some amazing music,
All right.
English and French. So,
I will definitely do that.
Yeah.
So what hobby of yours do you think would surprise many folks that you know? I don't know if most, or anyone.
What kind of hobbies do I have? I haven't been active on things lately. I can talk about past hobbies that I really have thoroughly enjoyed and submerged myself in. Riding horses.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I love the equine world. Yeah.
I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, so I went to an agricultural high school and an ag university. And when I was in high school, I volunteered. I got up at the wee hours of 4 a.m. to be at a riding stable in New York City by 5 and work until I had to take off at 7 to get to school. And I did that for quite some time. Yeah, so that was definitely a passion of mine too.
Oh. So I've never asked you this, and I'm curious, because we do a lot of agricultural work through Harmony Voices as part of our climate change mitigation and the Sovereign Garden Project. It was that, and obviously one of the things that we talk about a lot is in service of Mother Earth, as a respect for the earth as more than just an environment. It's also an environment, but the respect for that sense of being. Were you drawn to an ag school? Was it something that just happened, or was that a choice you made? Did you always know this was something in you that you wanted to have skills to work with?
Growing up in the city, obviously you're kind of removed from the nature, right?
Yeah.
But I did have a love for animals when I was growing up. We weren't allowed to have any, but I had a love for animals. And I always loved, we would just about every year, we would go up to Canada and spend time with friends. And I would go to this camp for the week. And I was very isolated because it was a French-speaking only camp. So I spent a lot of time on my own, and I would be in nature during those summer trips. And there was that connection, that thread of just how connected we are and how connected I felt when I was out in nature. And that was the first imprint, I think, for me. Yeah. And then, so I ended up going, like I said, to an ag high school, which was a wonderful foundation. And I was placed in charge of what we called the land lab, which was, I believe it was 4-acre, little 4-acre farm. And we had small animals, we had chickens, we had rabbits, we had, a mixed bag that I was responsible for. And that kind of led the way. I actually thought I was going to become an equine vet. And so I went in that direction of, okay, I'm in an ag school now, and I'm going to start studying the sciences for it. And then shortly after that, within about a year or so, I changed my mind. I started working with little people, like 3 to 5-year-olds, and I changed my mind, and I ended up going into education instead. But that love for the planet and doing your own gardens and farming, that kind of thing, that really does speak to me. And today, a big focus of where we're at with Her Many Voices is in getting a nice piece of land so we can go back to the earth and create a little sustainable community through what I consider a hemp longhouse community and cultural center.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, but go for it. Yeah, I
Okay.
just want to make sure people know what a longhouse is, because
Yeah.
that's such an amazing project and very interesting cultural information about, or information forming what you're doing.
No. So longhouses are from different tribes, and different nations have different versions of something that is very similar to them. But for the Eastern Band Salagi, the Cherokee, which is my mother's side, longhouses were created. Multiple families would come and live, and they would take care of each other and community within it. And it was definitely a mix of not only the personal residence, but a cultural center and a place to come to and work things through. So I'm looking at this as a return, and I feel like globally we do need to return to these smaller communities and really take care of each other. Grow our own foods, take care of each other's children because they are your child, kind of thing. So these are the things that I feel we need to implement. And today, a lot of people are doing that. I mean, we'll refer to these as either agrihoods or intentional communities. My take is that we're all tribal people. I don't care where we come from, And so if we go back to our ancestry and knowledge and how we used to work together, that is what's key to saving us today, because we are truly in a hot mess across the board.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it sounds like such a great opportunity for both the community piece, and then also one of the things that you've really worked on is reintroducing hemp as a plant that was very traditional. And what did you tell me, that our money was originally printed on hemp paper, and then it went through this whole political, I don't know, targeting practice, I guess. And now we get to have a full eco experience. Do you want to talk about that at all, and how, when you say a hemp longhouse, I know what you mean, but maybe you could describe a little bit what that entails.
Well, first of all, it would not be a traditional longhouse, because hemp is not a traditional way to build. It's more of a concept than a traditional practice. So hemp was a plant that was used for thousands of years on this planet.
Right.
And a great deal by Indigenous peoples, but just across the planet. And yes, our money was printed on hemp paper. Farmers had to, at one point, grow a certain percentage of hemp. You were allowed to pay your taxes to a degree with hemp. Betsy Ross's flag, American flag, was done on hemp, with hemp. The Constitution, many religious books on hemp. the
And then it was,
pyramids, the Great Wall of China. There's so many areas where hemp was used. And then in 1937, there was a gentleman who was in charge of the Drug Enforcement Agency, Harry Anslinger, and there was a propaganda around the cannabis plant, just in general. And so the umbrella of the cannabis is not only marijuana, but it's also hemp. They're cousin plants. The difference being that hemp is not the psychotropic that marijuana has, right? Low THC in it creates that. But at any rate, Harry decided to do this little propaganda, and it was racially motivated and people controlled motivated, and started making statements on how when our white women smoke this, they run off with the black men and they listen to jazz, and that creates a problem. When black men smoke it, they think they're as good as white men. When derelict Mexicans, quote unquote, derelict Mexicans. I mean, he just went down a hateful list. And it was to control, you know, I mean, this country is, the foundation of this country is genocide.
Yeah.
And so you know, at first I'm like, how could you possibly make a plant illegal? How could you possibly destroy a plant? We are a foundation of genocide. So why should I be so surprised that, you know, if we can do this to another of our own species, why am I surprised that we are doing this to another species? Right. And so hemp was pretty much eradicated. It was made illegal in 1937. It was under the cannabis, the Schedule I drug, you know, the Marijuana Act and the Schedule I drug. And, you know, there were all of these lies that were intertwined with it. And, you know, people drank the Kool-Aid and ran with it. And it did us disservice, and it threw out our biodiversity. And I truly believe a lot of the issues we have today is because we have done so much damage. We have eradicated species out there that are necessary for the balance of this planet. And hemp is certainly one of them. And I am grateful that it's coming back into the fold. You know, you would think we would learn, and we haven't. Allow it to be, instead of putting all of these stipulations on how it gets to qualify as its own self. You know, laws are really manipulated to just control and to, you know, it's all about corporate and government and making money and controlling people. It has nothing to do with the value of plant medicine. Every time we mess with Mother Nature, every time, it bites us in the butt. It really does. And yet we don't seem to learn that lesson.
No, we really don't. It's not. Well, and it's what I find frustrating, especially if you step back at all, right? Like that's what history is such a great teacher. It's easy to get confused in the modern moment, right? Like someone tells me, oh, this thing is for safety. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it is. But you look back 30, 50, 60 years, you're like, oh, wow, obviously that wasn't really a safety thing. That was obviously political. And I don't love using the word political because I think it's been diluted. Politics on their own aren't necessarily bad. It's a way that we understand and manage power. It's, you know, the misinformation, it's the unchecked power that people have, you know, in the same way that capitalism on its own in a free market system has benefits towards innovation, but extractive capitalism that is managed to benefit the wealthy, which is also more wealthy socialism, but we don't have to get into that, not great. So it's like to find that balance. But yeah, I feel like there's so many times when we're told that something is being done to protect us, and really what it's being done is to protect the people who make money or in some sort of position of power to not have to deal with something or to limit access. And it's hard to feel that distrusting. Like, I mean, it's weird because it feels very accurate. And yet at the same time, there's that feeling of, I also know plenty of really good people. Why do I assume that, you know, everybody who is in charge of decisions is not in that group? But there's been enough evidence that I kind of have to start there. And like, and I think that's a politician actually, or candidate I was talking to several years ago said, politicians should be slow to earn your trust and quick to lose it.
Mm.
And I think that's probably a good way to approach it. And then the other one I would say is that, recognizing what people are good and aren't good at. Like maybe somebody's a really good like administrator, maybe they shouldn't be making those other decisions. And what are systems we can put in place? That's obviously not necessarily for what you're up to, but it's something to think about. Um, where do you go for inspiration? You do really hard work that can be discouraging. You're working to make a difference, and I know a lot of people get hope from the work that you do. So how do you regenerate or inspire yourself to keep on?
There are times where I get to spend a little time in nature. Yesterday, I was very grateful because we went for a hike in outside of Boulder. And so just to be able to plug into the trees and the soil and feel the wind on your face kind of thing makes a huge difference. But the majority of my inspiration it comes from meeting other people. I love to engage with people. I want to hear your story. I want to share, experiences with you. Life is not it's not conceptual to me. I can't experience. It's experiential. It's not conceptual, right? So I really want to spend that one-on-one, looking into someone's eyes, sharing a cup of tea, and exchanging stories, because it's so far removed if I'm sitting at home just reading an article or seeing a documentary, which I do because as much knowledge as you can get is a beautiful thing. But, I feel like we don't have wars. We don't have so many disagreements when we sit down and we share that moment with each other. I'm a whole lot less likely to do something against someone if I have shared a meal and spoken about our children and our hopes and dreams for their future.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. So the inspiration comes from meeting with other people.
Thanks. No, I think that that's a really important point. It is harder to dismiss people's humanity, which I personally feel is a big part of what causes a lot of the real pain that we're dealing with right now, is we don't have the instinct to see and treat one another as people, more as objects. And it's much harder to do that if you are taking the time to speak to people, even if you haven't spoken in person to that being. If you've spoken to someone and they have something in common, it can help to overcome some of those instinctive reactions that are, understandable. We're inundated with prejudices, but not necessarily helpful.
Yeah. I mean, even if I'm having a disagreement with someone and I'm really not getting them and I feel like they're not getting me, I will go to someone else who acts more in alignment with other person and ask for their counsel, so I have a better understanding. I need to have that perspective. We still might walk away with, okay, I don't get where you're coming from, or it's not for me, but it's just, for me, it's a better route to go.
Yeah. Well, it's
I
a
need to
different
look at,
conversation.
yeah.
Right? Like if you're trying to meet someone and understand them, you may not end up agreeing. That conversation is really different than if you're trying to convince someone of something or win an argument, right? Like even in all three cases, you might walk away being like, nah. But the understanding, you could achieve that and still not necessarily come to a solution, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm talking to somebody, if I go to counsel with somebody who agrees and thinks just like me, well, it's not giving me that other dimension. It's not giving me the other perspective. I can't look at it at a different angle. So it makes a difference for me.
Yeah, no, I find that, like I said, like I've known you for a long time, and I find that to be very true. You're always looking for how to understand, how to connect, and I think that's beautiful. And I do think that if we did more of that, and it's hard sometimes, like life gets busy, and I realized the growing up, I knew my neighbors. I always feel in modern times, I feel very awkward talking to people outside. Like it almost feels rude and intrusive in a way that maybe just because I was a kid and kids don't pay attention to things, but I just never felt that way. And now I sort of feel this sense of like, is it all right to say hello to your neighbor? Is that awkward and weird? Like I don't know. It's just like I feel like there's a lot more hesitancy And I don't know, like some folks I know are really great at it. They know their neighbors, they say hi, they have like some kind of mutual support in their little
Mhm.
tiny areas. And I'm like, but I don't think that's common. Maybe it is, and it's just I've lived in weird places, but
I don't know. I mean, I grew up in the projects in New York City, and
mhm.
so yes, we all knew each other, and everybody took care. Everybody watched over each other.
Yeah.
You know, and the kids, we all went outside. We played together, and it was a mixed bag of backgrounds. Right, people came
Mhm.
from all over, and but the mothers would sit outside. We're playing on the stoops and the benches and the courtyards, and the mothers were out there full force, and they were watching over you. And
Yeah.
so everyone knew each other. But over time, it seems, especially in this country, I've noticed there's that separation of, I don't want, first it was, well, I don't want to feel intrusive, and then it's, well, it's none of your business. And so there seems to be that separation. um,
Mhm.
I usually make sure I say hello to my neighbors and get to know their names when they come in, because you just never know. I mean, you gotta take care of each other. That
Mhm.
it's just that simple. You have got to take care of each other.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think it's true, and you can't really take care of people if you don't know them, right? You
Right,
can't you can't show
right.
up. Um, so what would be different in the world if you achieve your vision?
Well, we would certainly have a lot more women, particularly BIPOC, Indigenous women, BIPOC women, who have a sense of, I can make it on my own. I'm empowered by what I do. I'm contributing more to my personal circle, as well as family, as well as community within that.
Mhm.
Um, and that is needed in a huge way. I mean, we've been put off to the side where we've been second class citizens for hundreds of years now, if not thousands of years. So, that would be a big difference within the female community, that's for
Mhm.
sure. And then there's just a reminder in the education on how we are all connected, whether we are in human form, bird, fish, river, tree, it's irrelevant. We are truly all connected. And so being able to create these environments, it's a little drop in the bucket, but there's a ripple effect to that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's true. I forgot to put the question up, so I'll do this time. What's your best advice? Received or given? You choose.
Uh, best advice: listen to your gut.
Mhm.
99% of the time, it's going to be right on target. And I can speak from experience when I've ignored it, put it to the side. I'm like, oh boy, I should have really paid attention.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe we all have that innate knowledge. There's that little guidance, whether you want to call it spirit, universe, whatever, God, whatever it is, there's that guidance.
Yeah.
And we need to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. And what's the best way to get involved with what you're doing?
Reach out to us. You can reach us at info@hermanyvoices.org. You can give us a call at 720-404-9037. We're on just about every kind of social media. Feel free to write in. I truly believe every one of us is an artivist in some way. And when I talk about that, a lot of people feel like, well, I'm not an artist and I'm not really an activist, so how can I participate? I truly believe we all have some kind of creativity within us. You don't have to be paid for your creativity to be an artist.
Mhm.
And as far as activism is concerned, it could be something as simple as, well, how do I get the coalition in my community to pay attention to recycling, or how do we garden, or how do we teach our children how to do certain things? Whatever it is, that is the activism. You don't have
Mhm.
to be on the big stage, with the bullhorn kind of thing. We get to do these things in big and small ways,
Mhm.
and we should. We each have a
Mhm.
responsibility as citizens to this planet, we each have a responsibility to take care of things, in your backyard, whether your backyard is literally your backyard or it's across the other side of the pond, right? It's a very intimate planet, and we have responsibilities to take care of it.
Well, and it's funny. I watched The Inconvenient Truth when Al Gore did that many years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said that really struck me, and I felt actually that I was somewhat guilty of, was he said that many of us go from denial to despair. And we skip the step in the middle where we pause and we say, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, darn it. I think he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, right? Because it like that is part of the scenario. And the other thing that I think is also really incredibly important to note is that no one person is going to change the way things are. Not because we aren't powerful, but because we are up against a systemic, a structural investment in preventing a lot of the things that we believe in, because they benefit people, a very small number of people, but they're invested in continuing that system. And so shaming people because they aren't getting it or whatever, it doesn't feel, not that you ever have done that, but like that's one of the things that I saw happening in the different movements that I worked in, that people, like you said, they'd feel like, oh, I'm not really an activist. They'd be like, oh yeah, you really darn because you used recycled plastic, whatever. It's like, no, if you want to show up and make a difference, let's have you do that. Like sometimes you have to help people understand where their lane is, like, like maybe this isn't your work. But that can be done. And I find, when people are genuinely trying, they receive that feedback really well. They're like, oh, I didn't mean to offend, whatever. And so I feel like recognizing that, and I, to a certain extent, there's that whole like white savior or general savior thing. So people want to be that big personality who's going to fix everything, like in an action movie. It just doesn't work that way. Real change takes consistent effort over time by large numbers of people. Like it's very rarely going to be like one big oh, it's all fixed, checkbox, move on. However, one person can make a difference, as you have, in the lives of so many people by going and doing work, by listening to communities and connecting communities with resources that they may not even know exist, by inspiring other people to pay attention to the impact of their efforts, or to the places where they can have a voice or make a difference for their neighbor, or, by supporting someone who's out there really doing that work. So I appreciate that as advice. And I hope that people will participate. I know I didn't know the answer to this question, which is what is your next event? So I'm gonna pop this up for you.
Okay, so I believe, all right, so you're talking about Earth Day 2022. And so on Friday, April 22nd, this is going to be our second annual event. And last year, it was amazing. Pretty much this event was put together by Aisala within a couple of weeks. But we had 65 presentations from 5 continents and 11 countries. And it's all about the indigenous wisdom to face these modern challenges. And it does not mean that you have to be indigenous to these lands. You don't have to be a Native American person identified as such here in order to participate. It's about the wisdom that that has been passed on to us by our ancestors, by our elders. Like I said earlier, I truly believe we all come from tribal peoples. And within that, there's tremendous wisdom. We need to listen. We need to go back. We need to take that time to really sit and be still and listen to what nature is telling us, what Mother Earth is telling us, and bring that forth. So that's what this day is about. Last year, it was all virtual. It had to be. This year, it will be predominantly virtual, but we will have small pockets of people getting together and being in person for the day. So please join us if you can. It was 13 and a half hours straight last year. We're looking at maybe doing 12 hours this year. So since I'm in front of the camera all day long and Aisla's behind the curtain, we need to keep in mind that rest is important and keeping our head kind of clear for
That's
the
fair.
process.
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's it. That's wisdom.
Yeah. We had a wonderful time last year, but oh man,
It's a long
13 and
day.
a half hours is a very long day for that
It
kind
is.
of thing. Yeah.
Well, and I will say also, like when we talked about, the indigenous wisdom part, it's also that, rediscovering the things like hemp that have been lost for different reasons, that had a traditional place, and maybe we don't know exactly, it can't be exactly what it was because we've lost connection to that root, but we can rediscover it and reincorporate it into our understanding and into our landscape, mentally as well as like literally.
Mhm.
And just recover like that. One of the things that I actually got from COVID, from watching the experiences, is that during the lockdowns, when we were just back in our homes and not driving, the clarity of the skies that they were showing from the pictures of the earth and the dolphins that were coming
Right.
back into the bays. And the reality is that we both have work to do to mitigate the impact of what we've done, and we can see that a concerted effort would really make a difference, a dramatic difference, rather quickly. And so just recognizing that there is hope. It requires action, but there is hope, and we have that to embrace as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, we can learn from every other species on this planet. We are the only one that will destroy ourselves and others for, a personal gain for a handful of people, right?
Yeah.
We all do that to some degree, and like I said, we're the only species who does that. So we certainly have to change our behavior, our thoughts, our actions. Words, simply because that is an energy that carries across, it
Hmm.
continues into the ethers, right?
Yeah.
These are the things that we need to do, and we have to do it now because we are quickly running out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Do you have any final things you want to share or offer before we close out?
I just want to say, I talked a little bit about this a little earlier, but you don't have to be in the main spotlight in order to make a huge difference in this world. It can be a simple thing like taking the time to look into someone's eyes and ask them how they are and truly sit to listen and have that exchange, because you never know that those 30 seconds, couple of minutes can make a huge difference in someone's life. And it will certainly make a difference in yours. So don't think, well, who am I? Because you as an individual are quite powerful. You have the ability to make difference, a huge difference in this world to many people, and starting with yourself. So take the actions, as small or seemingly insignificant as they are. Take those actions. Look at your children. 2-year-olds know better than we adults on how to care for someone else and give someone else a hug and just have that compassion and open heart.
Hmm.
Um,
No,
yeah.
it's really true. And I put Alicia's contact page up there. Also, Her Many Voices website. I'll pop that up again. And then we're going to do, like I said earlier, we're going to have Maren Krings on here on April 11th to talk about H is for Hemp. And I'm super excited to hear about her adventures, because what little I have heard is intriguing. Very
Yeah,
exciting.
and I've had the fortune of spending time with Mara and spending time in Amsterdam, and we spoke together at the hemp marijuana, let's see, I'm going to mess up the museum's name, hemp marijuana, I don't know, cannabis museum.
It was the
I
one in Germany,
apologize.
right?
No, this is the one that's in Amsterdam. Ben
That's right.
Dronkers is the owner of this particular museum.
We'll get that in the
So
notes if people want to check it out. Was it recorded, or is that something people could see?
um,
Or
some folks had their cameras out, so
okay.
I don't know if the whole thing was recorded straight, but certainly snippets of it. And Marin and I we get to join each other again in Latvia at the end of April. at the Obelisk Farm in Latvia, and that's
wow,
May
that's gonna be neat.
1st. They've got an event going on, and Hanna Gabrielova is going to be participating as well. It's going to be another international event, so I'm
Wonderful.
excited about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and being on my show finally. I love working with you, and I always love. It's funny because I've been working with you for years. I didn't know you had equine. I have to get you on a show and I ask you more questions.
Yeah, between that, I was a future farmer of America. All of these little tidbits that most people don't know.
No, that's great. All right, thank you so much. I'll see everybody in a couple weeks, and I look forward to chatting with you all more. And I'll put this up on YouTube so people can see it if they missed our little chat live. So take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Aisla. Bye-bye, everyone.